I think we're getting it. I think it's coming online here. A few little blips and clips there, but I think we're golden. Good morning to all those joining us live, Bishop on Air, every weekday morning, hanging out with you from my home studio. So appreciate you guys being here. And good morning to all of those. Let's just give a shout out real quick to those in the live stream as people pile in. John, Mike, Randall, Jerry, George, Hazel Eyes, I'm your Huckleberry, Brett, Scrooby Door, is that right? Dave DeHunter, Patrick, people pouring in. Appreciate you guys being here. All right, we're of course going to get into some issues that are top of mind. We'll talk a little bit about last night's New Hampshire primary, where you had former President Donald Trump get another victory. We'll take a look, though, at some of the outcomes of Republicans in New Hampshire versus Democrats in New Hampshire who turned out to the polls. What kind of crossover might there be from Democrats voting for, say, Nikki Haley, for instance? Something we'll jump into. Also, we'll get to some of what everybody's saying about the ongoing Illinois gun ban and registry. GPAC having an article published by the Sun-Times. We'll read some of that, but we'll also read a recent statement from Republican State Representative Mike Coffey out of Springfield in a joint statement with Sangamon County Sheriff Jack Campbell. So that's coming up here in just moments as well. But up next, we're going to connect with State Representative Dan Calkins, who is going back to the Illinois Supreme Court with his challenge against the state's gun and magazine ban. So we'll talk with him next in short order. Stay tuned. It's Bishop on Air. The state's gun and magazine bans raised a whole host of issues, from questions about whether you can ban commonly owned firearms to questions of equal protection by saying a certain class of people can own restricted firearms while others can't. Even the Fifth Amendment argument in the Southern District of Illinois federal courts being debated back and forth, with the merits of the case still moving forward, but all preliminary actions thus far have failed to block the law in the end. We did have that temporary injunction down by the Southern District of Illinois federal court. We did have also temporary restraining orders, thousands of them, including a final judgment in a county court in Macon County with State Representative Dan Calkins' case that actually went all the way up to the Illinois Supreme Court and then up to the U.S. Supreme Court. But one key issue here with all the gun ban talk that is now part of this case, at least in Illinois, deals with questions of judicial integrity. And that's something that State Representative Dan Calkins has raised substantial questions in both the Illinois Supreme Court and the U.S. Supreme Court. But now he's back in front of the U.S., or rather the Illinois Supreme Court. He joins us now via Skype to break down with some of the latest here. Dan, of course, just going through some of the trajectory here of the case that you brought forward. Let's go ahead and give us that background, where you were with Macon County all the way up to the Illinois Supreme Court, and then up to the U.S. Supreme Court, and now you're back. What's going on? Good morning.
Well, we filed our case in Macon County. It was this is legal mumbo jumbo maybe, but it's a facial challenge, different than what Tom DeVore filed down in Effingham. His was took a different path. We made our case in Macon County. The judge heard arguments, oral arguments, took it all under consideration, and ruled in our favor, and declared the law facially unconstitutional, which meant for everyone that the law was unconstitutional. So we won. The law was declared unconstitutional. The Illinois Attorney General, representing the defendants and themselves, had only one avenue to take, and that was to appeal our decision to the Illinois Supreme Court. So from the time that the judge in Macon County declared the law unconstitutional until the time that the Illinois Supreme Court ruled or overruled that decision, the law was unconstitutional for everyone in Illinois. So just kind of my opinion, and I think that's very sound legal opinion.
Well,
So
and the Illinois
been,
Attorney General fired back and said, no, it only impacts you and the other named plaintiffs in Macon County, but final judgment's final judgment. It was interesting, the messaging that happened there, especially that the Attorney General decided to immediately appeal it directly to the Illinois Supreme Court.
Well, Greg, had he not appealed it, the judgment would have stood. And if that judgment stood, what, only the group of people in Macon County were going to be free of the law? I mean, it doesn't make sense. It's and I know that the Attorney General didn't want to admit it, and I'm sure Governor Pritzker didn't want to make a big deal about it. But the fact is that the law was unconstitutional from the time the Macon County judge issued his opinion until the time that the Illinois Supreme Court overturned it. I mean, that's just what it was. So during the course of our battle in the Illinois Supreme Court, you know, we asked the court and then the two judges to recuse themselves because they had taken $1 million each from Pritzker and hundreds of thousands of dollars from Welch and and it just, the appearance of impropriety was to stand. Illinois Supreme Court refused to rule. In reality,
Representative, we seem to be having some connectivity issues with your line. Let's see if we can get that reset here in just a moment and let it kind of catch back up. But again, just to give some of that trajectory of this case that Representative Calkins brought forward. It's clearly something that is still being litigated because you have now taken this after the U.S. Supreme Court denied taking up the case. You have now proceeded to ask the Illinois Supreme Court to take the case back up. So, Representative, let's see if we've got you back here. It looks like it still says you have low bandwidth. So, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you great. Let me... Greg, let me turn off my video, see if that helps.
Yeah, we'll see if that helps out here, and we'll get this set up so that we can continue on. And maybe I just call you back on the phone so we can get this going. So live to tape, people. This is what we do here every weekday morning. So you can check us out. And actually, yeah, Representative, I'm just going to go ahead and end the Zoom. And I'm going to call you right back. So I will literally just hit this button over here. Appreciate you guys hanging out and dealing with the technical difficulties. As you could see, the representative was actually in the car on his way to an event. So we're going to connect with Calkins here. You can hear the phone ringing. Let's bring him in. All right. Representative Dan Calkins, thanks for being quickly to switch over here. So, yeah, if you could, I guess, so we went to the Illinois Supreme Court and they decided against you. They also decided not to recuse themselves. And a couple of different justices getting substantial campaign donations. But you took this all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, and they denied hearing the case. Now you're back in the Illinois Supreme Court. What are you asking from them?
Right. Well, there was our case and about 200 of them that they just didn't want to talk about, or they didn't want to have time to hear, or that wasn't something they wanted to do. They didn't make a decision that our case was against us. It's just that they denied an opportunity for us to be heard. Does that make sense, Greg? Can you hear me?
Yeah, and ultimately, I mean, there wasn't like an opinion attached to it, right? It was just along with 200 other cases where they said, we're not going to take this case.
Right. So our last resort, and we're back at the Illinois Supreme Court. When we filed our request for recusal, the defendants didn't object to it. They didn't in any way object to our request for recusal. So maybe they weren't against our request for recusal. And we're back because of the the good work that you and some other reporters have done on the $7.3 million super PAC money that was spent in this race. And we're saying that the two judges, should have disclosed that fact. They should have disclosed that Senate President Harmon had put $700,000 into this super PAC, and that his attorney, who also was in the courtroom as defending the Senate President, was responsible for spending that $7.3 million. I think that should have had a carried more weight with the Supreme Court, and we contend that we didn't get a fair hearing.
So by going back to the Illinois Supreme Court and asking them to essentially vacate their order, is this another way to maybe bring a solid case back to the U.S. Supreme Court, showing that you've attempted to highlight the issue yet again of judicial integrity and questions about, whether there's really separate branches of government in the state of Illinois, these types of questions? Is this a way for you guys to kind of build the case even more to go back to the U.S. Supreme Court?
Probably not. I think we understand the pressure that the U.S. Supreme Court's under in its terms, what it's dealing with, and I don't expect that we would have a different outcome. But this is an issue with our Illinois Supreme Court. We're raising the issue again, and hopefully anyone else that's bringing a case against the governor, against the state of Illinois, will use the same arguments, and hopefully, if they don't recuse themselves in this case, maybe enough pressure in other cases. Hope maybe it'll help others as well.
Representative, we've seen also the myriad of letters requesting the Judicial Integrity Board investigate this, and I've gotten some sent to me saying that they're not going to investigate this question of judicial integrity with two Supreme Court justices. How can you guys in the State House get a handle on this, if at all?
That's a great question. For the last 5 years that I've been there, we've argued for ethics reforms. I don't know how we're going to get it done, Greg. If the Democrats refuse to talk about ethics reform, that they limited the contributions to these judges, and then the governor breaks his own law. And you can talk about technicalities, $500,000. You can do it twice. You can use different funds and skirt the law or whatever. We have one party rule. We have a governor that's wanting to run for president, I'm sure, and willing to do whatever they can to bolster his image across the country. But we'll continue to push for ethics reform. We're going to continue to shine a light on the Supreme Court, and that's the best that I can do.
Representative, there's something else I want to just touch on briefly on this conversation about the gun ban and all the litigation there's been. There's been apparently just like bad blood. I can't put my finger on it, but bad blood between, I guess, the camp of people who support what DeVore is doing and the camp of people who support what you're doing in litigation. Sometimes messages can appear vitriolic online. How do you address that? And is there a way to, I guess, get everybody on the same page here when it comes to those looking to challenge the state's gun and magazine ban?
I can't. I'm not going to get into some argument with Tom DeVore. He has his own way of doing things. We have a different way of doing things. When this whole thing started, I offered to pay Tom for his work, and he declined. Told us to go do our thing, and we did it. We were successful. We got a final judgment declaring this law unconstitutional. I wish him well. I hope his case gets reinstated. I think that every person, every group, anybody that's challenging this law, the more we do it, the more opportunities we're going to have to get it overturned. I've never said a bad thing about Tom or his case. It's just unfortunate that he feels like he needs to denigrate what we're doing to benefit himself, I guess. I don't know.
Well, and it's not just DeVore, though. There seems to be just individual actors in the comments online. Sometimes can get vitriolic from all sides. Do you support that kind of debate, or is that something that everybody needs to, kind of lay down their arms, so to speak?
Well, I think people are entitled to their own opinions. I can't. I can't tell people what to think. I know what we did. I know what our reasoning is. I know that the success that we've had. I know that we've, even though the Illinois Supreme Court didn't rule in our favor, they left a lot of issues open that Tom is more than capable of following up on. I think he got a raw deal when they dismissed his case in Effingham, and I hope he keeps fighting. But there's people out there that want to believe what they want to believe, Greg. I guess if they understood what we did and took the time, rather than take this personally, maybe they'd be a little more understanding. I don't know. It's discouraging because the vast majority of those people are very strong Second Amendment supporters, conservatives. I can only do what we're doing in our case, and we'll continue to push to overturn this law.
Well, Representative Dan Calkins, greatly appreciate you taking the time with us this morning as you travel. I know you've got an appointment you've got to head to, so we'll let you get out of here. But we'll definitely have to reconnect soon, especially as the legislature prepares to come back February 6th, and all of the things that are going to be on the table in the weeks and months ahead heading towards the end of legislative session. So greatly appreciate you taking the time with us today.
Thank you very much. It's great to have this opportunity to talk to your listeners, and I'll have to go back and like today's podcast.
Well, I appreciate that. State Representative Dan Calkins, appreciate your time. And again, Representative Calkins is taking his case back to the Illinois Supreme Court to have them vacate their order against him, citing the questions of judicial ethics when it comes to integrity at the Illinois Supreme Court, with two justices getting substantial contributions from leaders of other branches of government. So kind of fascinating to watch all of that. So we'll connect with him again in the near future. It is Bishop on Air. Greatly appreciate you guys being here with me this morning. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and follow along each and every weekday morning here with Bishop on Air. Like what I'm doing? Check out the shop. Go to bishoponair.com, and you can click the store link and buy a podcast, or buy a t-shirt, buy a coffee cup, buy an apron. If you like grilling, you want a Bishop on Air apron, you can get that too. So check that out. All right, stay tuned. A lot more coming up. So what's everyone saying about the state's gun and magazine ban? We got some sheriffs and some Republicans putting out joint statements yesterday. You also have a recent article that was published by GPAC. And in the midst of the headlines in Chicago media about a toddler being shot in the city's far south side, a, quote, reign of terror in Joliet with multiple homicides and a dead suspect down in Texas, plus a student fatally shot outside of a school, you've got a headline like this from the Chicago Sun-Times, which is Kathleen Sances. She's with GPAC, and the headline here is Illinois' ban on assault weapons is working. There's no doubt that the assault weapon ban is doing exactly what it's intended to do, stop the sale of these deadly weapons in Illinois, according to the CEO of Gun Violence Prevention PAC. So what we have, of course, is an article that it's an opinion piece from GPAC, Kathleen Stances, and we'll read through some of this, but you can find this at the Chicago Sun-Times webpage. It is Bishop on Air. Thanks for tuning in each and every weekday morning. We broadcast live to tape, and then we segment these clips out, so I appreciate you guys being part of it. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. I checked this morning. I'm only like 40 away from hitting 15,000 subscribers. You guys are just incredible, so I appreciate all the support. But obviously, a lot of you are here to find out the latest in litigation against the state's gun and magazine ban. We talked with Dan Calkins earlier this morning live, getting his take on why he's going back to the Illinois Supreme Court. A little bit later on this week, we'll review more of what's going on in the Southern District of Illinois federal courts and some other court happenings in Illinois concerning the gun and magazine ban. Also, we may preview what's coming up with the challenges against the firearm owner's identification card. There are a couple of different challenges out there dealing with the state's gun ID owner permitting process. You know, a pre-purchase permit, essentially. You have to have a FOID card in order to legally purchase firearms and ammunition and own such items. So regardless, let's go ahead and take a look at what the GPAC says in their headline. Again, amidst all the headlines of people being shot and killed in Chicago, it seems that every week there's just a stack of such headlines, and it's just alarming. But GPAC saying that there's no doubt the, quote, assault weapons ban is doing exactly what it was meant to do. Talks about some of the background, saying that they just went into and put this law into effect immediately. There was no grace period, just an immediate halt to the manufacturing and sale of weapons that have increased the number of mass shootings across the country. High-capacity magazines that fire rounds in quick succession without needing to be reloaded, and switches that convert legal handguns into military-style assault weapons, she says. They also go on to talk about how they know it's working because they indicate through research that they provide, Gun Violence Archives shows 10% fewer mass shootings in Illinois between 2022 and 2023. So they're indicating that's because there's no longer sales of, quote, assault weapons in Illinois. They also talk about how gun dealers complying with the ban because evidence news stories, they're losing revenue, and they highlight that. They also go on to talk about in the weeks in ahead, you have all of the action of the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules approving those permanent rules. But as we reviewed, while they did approve the permanent rules, there's an official objection on the books saying that the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules does not support the rules because they're confusing. It's merely just an objection on paper, but that could be something that the courts look at and say, look, the legislative body that oversees these rules says they're confusing. But they go on to also in the opinion piece in the Chicago Sun-Times from Kathleen Sances from GPAC, the gun control lobby. They say the gun lobby doesn't want to talk about the immediate success of the assault weapons ban. Instead, it's using extremists like Darren Bailey to tell people to break the law and not comply in a flurry of bullets, no less. So you've got the kind of back and forth here that I'm highlighting with GPAC making their statements in the Chicago Sun-Times, but elsewhere you've got statements that are being made by state representatives, and including a joint statement that was released by Springfield Republican State Representative Mike Coffey, who put out this joint statement yesterday showing that Illinois sheriffs are not going along with the gun ban. So I'll just read this to you. As the Illinois gun ban continues to rattle by lawsuits, more law-abiding citizens and sheriffs are taking a stand against the law. State Representative Mike Coffey, Republican of Springfield, agrees with Sangamon County Sheriff Jack Campbell's opposition to the law due to adherence to the Constitution and ineffectiveness of the law. The gun ban is nothing more than legislation passed for political gain and influence, Coffey said. Our Second Amendment protects law-abiding citizens from government overreach, and I believe the gun ban does not make Illinois any safer. It simply takes away constitutional rights from legal firearm owners while criminals are running the streets with illegal guns. Many sheriffs across Illinois have vowed not to address anyone who refuses to register their firearm, ammunition, or attachments in the states to the state police. Sangamon County Sheriff Jack Campbell issued the following statement: "We disagree constitutionally with the law, and we don't know how it'll make Illinois safer," Campbell said. "Our plan moving forward is to use discretion and to educate the people of what the law says." Campbell went on to say that he's waiting for the legality of the law to be determined by the U.S. Supreme Court. And the general public, he said in a quote, is confused just as much as local sheriffs are, Coffey said. "I think it speaks volumes when you have sheriffs across Illinois said that they will not enforce the law on legal gun owners." So that's a joint statement that was released by Mike Coffey, a Republican state representative, along with the sheriff of Sangamon County, which is where Springfield's at. So that's interesting to see. Again, the back and forth. Now you've got the sheriffs are one thing, the state's attorney's another. They say they're not going to make enforcing this a top priority. So that is clearly an indication of people who don't comply with this law. But you also have others pointing to the registration numbers. And as we talked about this week, you've got registration numbers indicating that there's been mass noncompliance with this. Even the publication Bearing Arms is highlighting this and talking with Dan Eldridge from Federal Firearms Licensees of Illinois. If you read this story from Bearing Arms, they talk about what's behind the lack of compliance with Illinois' gun registration mandate. It goes on to highlight some of the speculation from Eldridge showing that if you extrapolate different types of data, then you're going to find that it's less than 5% have complied. So not the 1.4%, but less than 5% when you really extrapolate that data out. So, obviously there's indication that you've got a whole host of people who've said that they're just not going to comply with this law. So that's just a little bit of some of what, he and she said, right? The back and forth, the debates, the public debates from the gun control side and the ongoing gun rights side. But all of this even gets all the way up to President Joe Biden, who recently made these comments, which has raised a lot of people's ears to be like, well, what exactly is he going on about here?
And I love people who say, the blood of liberty, or the tree of liberty is watered with the blood of patriots. Well, guess what, man? I didn't see a whole lot of patriots that are out there walking around making sure that we have these weapons. Well, and if you really want to worry about the government, you need an F-16.
Again, the president saying, can't get the quote right, the tree of liberty needs to be watered with the blood of patriots and tyrants alike, I think is more of a correct paraphrase of that quote. Who did that? Maybe some of you guys know who did that. Was it Thomas Jefferson who said that? The tree of liberty needs to be watered with the blood of tyrants and patriots alike, I think. And I think that's somewhat the saying. But either way, people in the live chat could probably fact check me on the who said that and what exactly that quote was. But it obviously was not this quote that President Biden said.
The blood of liberty, the tree of liberty is watered with the blood of patriots. Well, guess what, man? I didn't see a whole lot of patriots that are out there walking around making sure that we have these weapons. Well, and if you really want to worry about the government, you need an F-16. And I love people.
So you need an F-16 if you really worry about the government. And we can find archived quotes from Al Sharpton talking about, hey, the government has drones now. Why do you need guns? Why do you need 100 rounds to shoot a deer? The government has drones. So, again, where we're at in the debate about the Second Amendment, which some see as a fundamental civil liberty. It's right there next to the First Amendment. Others see it as something that's just on paper and it's time to change. But clearly we'll see ultimately how this all plays out. And another thing, too, which is also fascinating, what's going on over in Australia. This is a wild story that recently was recorded out of Australia, highlighting the gun confiscation that's going on over there, and just a little blip of a news story over from Australia.
By a long shot.
Oh, wow.
The police reaction. Seeing the secret entrance revealed to a gun lover's treasure trove. Officers finding a range of weapons at the property, handguns, shotguns, more than 1,000 rounds of ammunition, plus a workbench equipped to modify firearms, even an underground shooting range, complete with pulley system to set the target.
A bunker, an underground shooting range, an arsenal of high-powered firearms, right in suburban Perth. It's just incredible.
The stash also included a .50 caliber rifle with ammo, a weapon designed to penetrate armoured vehicles.
Again, you can watch more of that just searching for this particular video. But Australian news highlighting gun confiscation because they don't have a Second Amendment down there in Australia, and apparently these firearms were owned by a former prized fighter. So fascinating to see all of that. So again, where we're at in the debate of the Second Amendment here in the United States, how it's being viewed by both sides of the argument in this country, but also how others in other countries are treated. Rather interesting to see that, no question. All right, it is Bishop on Air. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow along, and check me out on X, on Facebook, and we can connect that way, all right? Appreciate you guys being here each and every weekday morning. Former President Donald Trump taking the New Hampshire primary, giving a speech last night, being as sassy as the former president has gotten recently, but obviously he's on his way to get the Republican nomination, a Republican presidential candidate that faces what? I don't even know what the corporate media's talking point is. What is it, 90 criminal charges in 4 different cases or something, dealing with, the election interference or dealing with the classified documents or whatever the case may be. But obviously, former President Donald Trump on a wave, and after trouncing all the other candidates in the Iowa caucus, yesterday he beat Nikki Haley after you had Vivek Ramaswamy and Ron DeSantis drop out last week. But here's just a sampling of the former president's victory speech here with Bishop on Air. Thanks for taking time with us each and every weekday morning as we broadcast live and clip out these segments so you can enjoy them throughout the week and stay informed. But here is the former president as broadcast by Fox News with his victory speech last night. He talks about the migration crisis. He talks about the ongoing politics, what's polling, and also he brings up several people to talk, including Vivek Ramaswamy.
We had one hell of a night tonight. One other thing before Vivek comes. Do you see that poll? We're going to put it up. We have beaten Biden. You could almost say, who can't? Who the hell can't? The man can't put 2 sentences together. He can't find the stairs off a stage. Who can't? But Vivek, 1 minute or less. Go do it, Vivek.
What we saw tonight is America first defeating America last. That's what we saw tonight.
This has people speculating that Vivek Ramaswamy could very well be a vice presidential pick. We'll see if that pans out. But you also see Tim Scott on the stage, who also was brought on to say a few words.
If you want America last, you can go to Joe Biden. You got another candidate still apparently in the Republican primary. Cut your Social Security to fork over more money to Ukraine so some kleptocrat can buy a bigger house. Go to Nikki Haley. But you know who delivered a double-digit victory tonight? It is a double-digit victory as of right now. Is this man, Donald J. Trump, the leader of America First? And that means something.
So Ramaswamy goes on to lay out a few other things about what separates Trump from others. But then you have Trump bring up Tom Homan, who was the former Border Patrol secretary, I believe, when he was in the administration. And Trump seeming to kind of highlight some of his possible picks to lead the office. So here's Tom Homan from last night, talking about the border crisis.
Look, I worked for 6 presidents down around Reagan, and every president I ever worked for did something to secure the border. But no one did more than President Trump. The most secure border in my lifetime. The most secure border we've ever seen. And Donald Trump's going to do it again. We're going to lock the border down, and we're going to protect Americans. Because what's happening at the border right now, a record number of Americans have died from fentanyl poisoning. A record number of migrants have died. A record number of women and children have been sex trafficked. A record number of known suspected terrorists across the border. There's one man who's proven he can secure the border, and he's standing to my left, Donald J. Trump, and he's going to do it again.
So, again, you have the president, former President Trump, giving a victory speech. He also brought on Tim Scott to talk a bit. While you had current President Joe Biden campaigning recently, and he was heralding Democrats' stance on abortion, but you're seeing some interesting divisions in the Democrat Party of those who are concerned about what's going on between Israel and Hamas and Israel's attack inside Gaza, where you've got some in the Democrat Party demanding there be a ceasefire, and it's really seeming to show its ugly head. The division there among the Democrats. And he held a rally recently, the president did, and he was interrupted several times by the chanters saying, they want a ceasefire. All right, so let's get back to the primary last night, though. You have the outcome, which is being correlated by or collected by Google, and you could see the outcome here with about 92% reporting 164,000 votes for Trump, 129,000 votes for Haley, 54 to 43. But what's interesting is you compare that to the number of votes in the Democrat Party yesterday for their primary. Joe Biden was a write-in, by the way. I'm not sure the background on that. That's interesting. But Joe Biden got 54,000 votes in the primary. I did look at the 2020 primary, and just the total of votes there were between the Republican and the Democrat primary voters came out in 2020 in New Hampshire, and it was like 120,000 for Bernie Sanders or something to that effect, and a few 100 and some odd thousand, or it was much higher totals than what were here yesterday from the 2024 New Hampshire primary. And what I'm getting at here is there's speculation that there were tons of crossover voters going from Democrat to Republican in New Hampshire so they could vote for Nikki Haley to be the nominee. And this is evidenced by a clip that was on CNN last night. Check this out.
And why did you vote for Nikki Haley?
It's a vote against Trump. I think it would be better to have her against Biden in the elections than it would be Trump and her.
Do you consider yourself generally independent, Republican, or Democrat?
Democrat.
So when you undeclared, you voted for Nikki Haley. If it was Nikki Haley against Joe Biden in a general election, who are you voting for?
Joe Biden.
What is the
Nikki Haley.
And why did you vote for Nikki Haley?
There you go. CNN kind of putting out there a voter who might just answer as to why there were not as many Democrat voters in yesterday's New Hampshire primary this year that there were back in 2020. So we'll see if that continues to be reported on throughout. But obviously, the issue of migration is top of mind. You've got Trump again, who brought out Tom Homan last night to talk about the border crisis. Trump is really differentiating himself from others. But the border crisis clearly impacting us here in Illinois. And here's a video that's going around as well. It's gone viral. Naperville Councilman Josh McBroom, he wants to get residents to allow for undocumented migrants to stay in their homes. Here's what he had to say.
I do know that there's a lot of people that do care. And I think we live in a compassionate community. So, before we go down the road of, doing what, following suit on some of these other cities are taking action on. My idea would be let's find out. Let's find out who's willing to help. We do hear from constituents on both sides of this. What are we going to do to preemptively stop this? And then we hear from people that tell us we should do more. So, we do have a very affluent community, a lot of big homes, and what I'd like to do is direct staff to create a sign-up sheet. So, for individuals that would be willing to house migrant families. And if there's people that would do that, God bless them. So if we could raise awareness in that way, I think we need to find out. I think we need to find out who would be willing to house migrant families. And so that would be my new business. I'd be looking for support from the dais.
So again, interesting to see how indeed the migrant crisis is impacting Illinois, with leaders in Naperville suggesting that people open up their homes for non-citizen migrants coming to the country. This isn't here in Illinois. This isn't down in Texas or in Arizona. This is Illinois. So you can see why the issue of the migration crisis is polling as a top issue for voters all the way in Illinois, all the way to New Hampshire, and across the country, far from the southern U.S. border. So clearly that's going to be a major issue heading into the November 2024 election. We'll be taking a look at some of those things throughout, but obviously, we focus a lot on Illinois. Illinois has a primary coming up March 19th at the end of this month. So in about 6 or 7 days, the Illinois State Board of Elections is set to certify the Illinois ballot, where you have objections against former President Donald Trump getting on the Republican ballot, and you have objections of current incumbent Democrat President Joe Biden getting on the Illinois Democrat primary ballot. So they're gonna, take all the arguments back and forth, and they'll make a decision here by the end of the month here in Illinois as to what the primary ballot's gonna look like. So that'll be fascinating. We'll track that. All right, guys, have yourselves a wonderful rest of the day. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and check us out each and every weekday morning. Again, I'm only about 30 some odd people away from hitting 15,000 subscribers. So if you hit subscribe, greatly appreciate it. All right, that's it for today's program. Greatly appreciate it. Hey, look at that. It's almost 8:30 here live. Giving a shout out to those who've stuck around all throughout the program. Carla, good to see you. Hazel Eyes, Hippie, Devil Dog, Dangerous Liberty, Ben Hudson. You've got Hazel Eyes still there also. He's pretty active, or she's pretty active. John, Warsaw, Tenebris. If I misgendered you, I apologize. Daniel, George, Hippie. Guys, I appreciate that. Hypnolama, Henry, you guys are great. Thanks for being here each and every weekday morning. Is that Bass Life or is that Bass Life 217? Because, I can slam on a bass. I don't think I've ever caught a bass. All right, guys. Have yourselves one for the rest of the day. Today's only Wednesday. Is that right? It's only Wednesday. All right. We'll be back at it tomorrow. See you then. Thank you for hanging out each and every weekday morning. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Grab yourself some merchandise. Why not? Just me hanging out in my home studio before I head off to the full-time gig. So Again, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, follow me on Twitter throughout the day, and we can connect that way, all right? You can also email me, bishoponair@gmail.com. Find the show on all your favorite podcast channels. We do upload the entire show as a podcast later, so you'll be able to just pull it up on like Spotify, for instance, and listen to it while you're traveling around the car. So, all right. Later on, guys. Greatly appreciate it. Who's that? Steve Hernandez, South Loop checking in. Appreciate that. Randall, BJ65, Dave, Christopher, Paul, AS3, SXP. Subscribe more than once if you could. I get it. But I do appreciate the support, guys. We'll see you back here tomorrow morning.
So